Well, I hope a lot of you are staying for brunch right after this service. I walked by the kitchen. It smells absolutely wonderful. You're all invited to stay, so I hope you take advantage of that. As we're in this series called, Redefined, there are words that we use that I think have changed their meanings, or we use a word and take on, like culture develops a new meaning for words, and we kind of all buy into it. And I think some of these really, really important words we need to redefine back to the original intent or back to how God sees things. And today I want to talk about a word that I think we use so often. I think we appreciate it. And that word is freedom. And I love freedom. I think freedom is a great word. I think freedom is a great thing. I hope that every one of you appreciate what you have living in the United States. I know that the United States of America is not perfect. No country is perfect, but we're darn good. I mean, really, it's amazing. The United States has given more support, rebuilt more countries. The U.S. has been more humanitarian work and effort in our world than all other countries combined. It's an amazing place. And the freedom that we have, there are so many countries that it would be illegal to have a Christian church service. I mean, even today, 2018, can you believe it's illegal in so many countries? We have the freedom to come together. We have the freedom to build a facility and say this is a gathering place of a Christian church. And we have the freedom to do that. I love some of the freedoms we have. We have the freedom to get any job that we want. You can go to school and become anything you want to be. Of course, it's going to take a lot of hard work and dedication and a lot of money, but you can do it. We can choose to be whatever career we want to do. We have the freedom to do that. What I really appreciate in the summertime, it's kind of motorcycle season, is to take bike trips. And I think about how awesome it is to just ride from one end of this country to the other end. And you don't have to stop at every border, show your papers, prove it. It's a freedom to just travel this whole country. And we have incredible freedoms in this country. Incredible. But what I wonder is this. Have we changed the definition of freedom, or the definition which we use for freedom? Is it accurate? Is it really true? And is it good? Because I'm going to read in just a second one dictionary definition of freedom, and there are other definitions, but listen to what this one says. It says, freedom is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. Now, right off, that sounds really good. That sounds like freedom, that, we can act and do. We have the freedom to do what we want. But I wonder if we have taken that definition and we've brought it just a little bit too far, that we have kind of bought into, as a nation, as a culture, we've bought into what freedom means is I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, to whoever I want, as much as I want, and all this. I wonder if our definition of freedom has become that I don't have to do what anybody else tells me. I don't have to follow anybody else's rules. I will make up my own God. I will make up my own gender. I will make up my own ideas. I will make up my own morality. I will make up my own rules because I am free to do whatever I want to be, and I don't have to follow anything or anybody. And I think that the definition of freedom has kind of creeped this direction so that we have bought in as a culture, I don't have to listen to anybody. I don't have to do what anybody says. I don't have to follow anybody's rules. I can be whatever I want to be. And here is the problem with that definition the way it is, and I believe, which is the way we as a nation have taken it, is because that definition of freedom has cost us more pain and more struggle and more turmoil and more crime. I think that most of what we suffer as a nation, not all, most of what we suffer today is because of the definition of freedom going to, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, to whoever I want. I don't follow anybody, don't listen to anybody, make up my own rules. You and I watch the news. We see the news every day. And so much of the mayhem, the death, the crime, the violence that we experience in our culture, most of this is because of the definition of freedom is, I am not following the standard. I am not obeying anybody. I'm going to do what I want to do. I have my individuality, and nobody can tell me. Not only does it cause us pain in our culture, we all know it. It causes pain in our own individual lives. The whole idea that I don't have to follow what anybody else says. I don't have to do that. I don't have to go there. I don't have to believe that. I will write my own rules. I will write my own God. I will make my own stuff. And I don't have to follow anything else because I am freedom. And I think our definition of freedom has gone so far as to think that we have actually taken freedom into thinking that I can make up anything I want. You know what? I can identify as anything I want. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It doesn't matter if my blood matches it, or my DNA matches it, or whatever. I can just make it up. And it's gone so far. It's causing pain. And I believe with all my heart, and I hope that you and I as individuals, we may not change the country or the things that are going on, but you and I can have a huge impact on our own lives. And you and I can choose to redefine freedom from the horrible thing that it's come to be known as, to, I believe, an incredible thing in our lives. And I believe a definition of freedom, I want to redefine freedom to this. Real freedom is submitting to rules. Right away, you might kick back, wait a minute, that sounds contradictory. How can you say that? Freedom is submitting to rules. Real freedom is submitting to rules. I know I have experienced it in my own life and things, and you all, every one of us have experienced this, that we know that this is true. We may not want to do it, but we know that it's true. Just think about driving, for instance. I have found in my life that I have more freedom when I follow the rules than when I don't. You've paid traffic tickets, right? You've paid speeding fines, haven't you? Okay, some of you. Some of you are liars. Hey, there's much more freedom when you follow the rules. It is. As a matter of fact, you and I will find that when we follow the rules, especially when we as a culture, can you imagine the mayhem on the highways if you and I brought our definition of freedom to our driving system and to our highways and our roads? Where you and I, what would it look like if we decided, well, I'm free, I'm going to drive as fast as I want, whenever I want, whatever direction I want. Those lines mean nothing. Stop signs mean nothing. It means whatever. I'm just going to drive whatever I want. Nobody's going to tell me how to drive. Nobody's going to tell me I'm free to drive however I want to drive. It would be absolutely chaos. I think it's tragic in our world today that we have so much texting and driving. I got a great idea. We should outlaw it. We already did, but it doesn't do any good if nobody follows the rules. I mean, it doesn't do any good. If we just feel like, well, but I'm special, I'm free, I can do whatever I want. I can, as long as I don't get caught, I guess there's nothing wrong with it. Really, people are dying every day because of it. You want freedom at your job? Follow the rules. If you want to be free at your job, if you want to get raises and you want to be appreciated and you want to be trusted where you work, then follow all the rules. The better you follow the rules, the more freedom you will have at your job. But you say, but the rules are binding. No, the rules are freeing, because those who don't follow the rules, they're the ones that get written up. They're the ones that don't get raises. They're the ones that lose their job. Or at least it used to be that way, but I don't want to get into that. That's a whole other message. But here's the point. I often see, and I have a couple of other businesses, and as I see employees, one of the hugest problem I see today is this, is people have this attitude, well, I'm not going to do it if I don't want to. I don't follow the rules. I'm an individual. What, as an owner of a business or a place you work, that they say, well, I want you to do that. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, you got to show up at this time. I don't want to show up at that time. I don't want to work with that person. Okay, tell you what, you just do whatever you want to do and we'll see how free you are, because most of those people are the ones that can't afford a car, a place to stay. I mean, seriously. We're getting down to how free is it when you don't have nothing, when you don't have a job and you can't afford this or that. That's not freeing, that's bondage. And I think so oftentimes this idea that we have as a country that we're free to do whatever and make up our own rules and do our own thing, we think that's freedom, and it's actually restrictive, and it's bringing bondage to our lives. Try to break the law or steal stuff, whatever. Yeah, I just kind of do what I want. Yeah, until you get caught, and then you throw in jail. Then you're thrown in jail. How much freedom is there in jail? Not much. And I really believe that we have to redefine freedom. Real freedom in our lives is submitting to the rules. But the big question is this: who's going to make up the rules? Who's going to make up the rules? In our nation, is a Republican going to make up the rules? Is a Democrat going to make up the rules? Is it some really extreme right-wing religious person going to make up the rules? Or is it going to be some atheist anti-God going to make up the rules? I mean, I'm suggesting that freedom comes from submitting to rules, gives us incredible freedom, but who's going to make those rules? And I believe this with all my heart. No human being is qualified to make up the rules. Not one. Now, sure, we got to come up with traffic stuff and all that, but generally the rules for life, there is no human being smart enough to make up the rules for human life except God. God knows us and created us. He knows what makes us free. His rules in our lives, for our lives, are for our freedom, not for our bondage. They don't bind us up. They don't control us. They set us free to really live. The Bible says this about being a follower of Jesus Christ. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I mean, real freedom. Real freedom on the inside. Really not watching over your shoulder, not feeling all this guilt and all this trouble and difficulty in life, but really being free, holding your head up high, feeling good about yourself as those who the Son sets free. Those who decide to be followers of Jesus Christ are the freest people in the world. Real freedom. And this applies to every aspect of our life. But today I want to talk about three: morality, marriage, and money. These are huge. These affect most of our life. Most of what we deal with has to do with one of these three things in our daily life. And every one of us have a choice in our morality. Am I going to make up my own rules, or am I going to follow what God says? I'm going to be free and nobody's going to tell me. We're going to discover that is not freedom at all, but that is bondage. Freedom is when we follow God's morality. Marriage is not just doing whatever you want and fighting for it. Marriage freedom comes when we follow God's rules. And the same with our money. Think about morality. We live in a culture that tells us there is no right or wrong. Is that really true? There is no right or wrong? Well, whatever you choose is right for you. Listen, I want to be as respectful as I can, but really, I don't, can we really buy that? I mean, isn't there some truth? Isn't that generally up and that's generally down? Can we agree on that one? Well, I guess if we're on the other side of the earth, that maybe not. I don't know. Can we agree on anything? There's got to be some absolutes and some truth. And with morality, if we make up our own morality and do whatever we want to do, is that really free? Or maybe submitting to what God says and find real freedom. Looks at the Bible's got a lot of these things in it, but I just want to read this portion to you. He says, put to death. Stop doing these things. Whatever belongs to your earthly nature, this is our desires sometimes. Our earthly nature is what I want to do. Okay, I want to eat ice cream every day, every meal. That's not good for me. If I do that, I will not be free. Because if I do what I want to do, whatever my body wants to do, if I do that, it will bring bondage, because I'm a type 2 diabetic now because of it. And it can only get worse. If I eat whatever I want to do, if I just feed my body what it wants, it will end up killing me, and that's not freedom. It's not. Submitting to rules. He says, put these things away, what belongs to your earthly nature. Sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, greed, which is idolatry, worshiping money. But now you must also rid yourselves of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, filthy language from your lips. Do not lie to each other. And listen, I know that we think, well, I can do that if I want to, and nobody's going to tell me we can. But we all know this to be true. If you lie to people, you are not free. Because you know you have to remember, oh, shoot, what did I say to that person? And what did I say to that person? Oh, and hey, that's not freedom. That's bondage. That's worry. Or talking behind somebody's back or slandering somebody. And then you see that person again. You act all nice. You find out they found out. And they come to you and they say, oh, hey, is it true that you said this behind my back about this? Man, you feel like icky at that point. That's not freedom. You got to watch who you see and watch what you're doing, and you got to wonder if these people are thinking that. It's like you got to manipulate your life. That is tiring just to think about it. That's not freedom. Freedom is not lying to anybody. Freedom is not talking behind anybody's back. Listen, this whole lust. If you are lusting with pornography, or you're using pornography in any way, I know you want to, and I know you think it's good, but you know it's bondage. It's a weight. It doesn't bring freedom. It's a curse. And you know the guilt that you carry. You know that you feel dirty, even if culture says you're not dirty, there's nothing wrong. You still know it is. You still know you got to lie and hide it. It's embarrassing. That's not freedom. Freedom is staying clean from those things. Freedom is following what God says. What about sexual immorality? Some of you are having an affair. How free is that? Some of you are sleeping around. How free do you feel? You may like doing it, but you don't feel free. As a matter of fact, you feel like puking your guts out sometimes. That's bondage. Yeah, the world tells us, just do whatever you want, make up your own rules. But you know what? We can't run from it. It's our guilt and our conscience and feeling dirty in this weight. We say, oh, culture put that on me. No, culture didn't put that on you. God birthed it in you. It is from God what purity really is. And we all know it. And when you and I choose to stop doing these things, freedom is when you and I choose to submit to God's rules for morality. We find freedom. No guilt. No shame. Not worrying about who's watching and who's not. Not worried about what I'm hiding and what I'm not. I'm clean. Now, none of us are perfect. But God forgives us. But this idea of we become free when we submit to God's boundaries for our life. It provides incredible freedom. What about marriage? Marriage. Well, we won't go there yet. Okay, we can. Marriage. Marriage. Submitting to what God says for the family. God says, simple as can be. We love to complicate it. Simple as can be. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this is pleasing to the Lord. That's not tough. But yet, sometimes we feel like, I don't have to submit to anything. I can do whatever I want. I'll have whatever kind of family I want. I'll choose to be. And we do. And here's the thing. Every one of us know this. If you've experienced it or you've seen it in others, every one of us know that doing whatever you want in a marriage or in a home brings absolute chaos. It brings chaos. It brings hurt. It brings struggle. It brings heartache. There is tension and turmoil and fighting and competition, yelling and all kinds of horrible things. When you and I decide I'm not going to do what God said, I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to fulfill a role. That's so old-fashioned. Whoever said there was a role? God did. And when you and I decide there's not going to be any role, we're going to do what we want. And then I'm telling you, and we all know this is true. There is hurt and pain and destruction when we do things our own way because we're free to do whatever we want. It comes with pain. God's way is always the best. Real freedom. If you have a home where the wife respects her husband and is a team player, if you're in a home where the husband loves his wife and fulfills her, and you have a home where children, this is a tough word, obey, you have a great home. That's freedom. That's peace. That's fulfillment. That's happiness. Submitting to God's rules. Now, interesting, and I got to point this out. The only way this is going to happen if these two make it happen, okay? These two, the tough part, like baby dedication, I think, oh, it's such a struggle. Raising kids today is such a huge responsibility. Well, it always has been huge, because it is the parents' responsibility to make the children do this. Yes, I said make them do this. Because children don't automatically do this on their own. They're not going to. You know, if you ever notice little kids, I got a lot of grandkids and watch them grow up. You know what? The parents don't have to tell them, teach them, okay, say no. Say no. Say no. Come on. You just don't want to do it. Come on. Say no. No, that's in there. Okay? You don't have to teach. You have to teach them to say yes. You have to teach them to share. You have to teach, hey, you got to teach them to obey. It's not natural for kids to obey. Parents got to teach their children to obey. But when parents take their responsibility the way God says, you have freedom. If a parent decides not to discipline their children or teach and raise their children because I'm going to do my own thing, make up my own rules, you do not have freedom. And if you think you do, wait till your kid's 17. Then you will realize you don't. It just works. The last one is money. I know that we live in a culture where you guys, we're bombarded with my money, it's mine, I work for it. And it's just, you know what, money makes everything go, right? Money's an important part of our lives, very important. And I question a little bit when they say money can't buy happiness. I think maybe it can, but maybe not. Okay, I don't know. But money can definitely buy ease. I mean, money can buy fun. I don't know about actual happiness, probably not. But money can buy a lot of things. And you know what? We're taught, we hold on to money like it's everything. And you know what? That selfishness, that greed, that holding on to money, it's not freeing. It's not freedom. When you and I are selfish, when we want to keep, when we want all ours, and we want to get a little extra, it ends up isolating us. Actually, it's bondage to live under the struggle of trying to keep everything you earned. And God says it's the opposite. And real freedom is submitting to God's rules. The Bible many, many times talks about giving so much, but here's just one verse. It says, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." I mean, God's telling you about this is a principle of life. When God created the world, He created this as a part of nature. It's just like gravity. This whole giving and you get back is a part of nature. It's a part of what God put in. We all know this to be true. We do. We all know, and you've said it, what goes around comes around. Same principle. We all know that what you sow, you'll reap. You put one kernel of corn in the ground and you're going to reap corn. But you're going to reap a lot more because now you got a whole stock of kernels of corn. That principle we know. We see, we live with it. What God's saying is this. That same principle works financially. That when you and I let go of the grip of selfishness and money, when we let go of that and we become generous, we receive generously. What goes around comes around. I don't know if it's God's specific blessing on our life or if it's just the way He made the world work. But I do know this. If we want financial freedom, we have to submit to what God says. God says give. I believe this is true with our time, with our money, with everything we have, to be generous, to be giving. And it will come back to us. It just does. Generous people. If you know somebody generous people are always happier people. Always. Generous people are blessed people. And I know for me, just my quick story is this. When I was about mid-20s, married, had a couple kids, trying to make life go, junk car, living in an old trailer house, and just, trying to make life happen. I can remember taking on the responsibility for financial pressure upon myself. It was my responsibility to provide for the family. It was my responsibility to, where is this family going to go? Or are we going to have vehicles and a place to live? And are we going to have food? And all of that responsibility fell on me, and I took it was a huge weight. And when I first learned in a church like this, I first learned that God says He will be responsible if we trust Him. So it's like this. It's like somebody else owning the company. And if you work for somebody, you want to be the owner until it comes payday. Okay, then you don't want to be the owner because then all the pressure's on the owner to pay all the bills. You got to pay all your suppliers, you got to pay all your help, you got to pay all the insurances and the taxes, and and you question, why am I in business anyway? But that's a different story. So here's the thing. It's so freeing to just get the paycheck and somebody else can worry about it. That's how I understood giving to God. And my whole life, I have transferred the responsibility of money to God. God has said this, if you follow my rules, I will be responsible. I will bless you. I will watch over you. I will take care of you. I'm like, whew, God, I'd much rather give to you. Follow a certain few rules, God says. God says, don't be in debt, live within your means, and give 10% or more of your income to the church, to the needy. Give your money. I did that. I've been doing it my whole life. And you know what? The freedom, guys, I'm telling you, if I could convince you just to try this for 3 or 4 months, just try it, you will discover the freedom of saying, God, you're responsible. God, you're going to take care of me. God, I'm doing what you said to do, and the rest is up to you. And it's so freeing. Now, it doesn't mean you can buy whatever you want, but you know what I mean. Real freedom comes from submitting to what God says. I want to just wrap this up and close with this one quick story that Jesus said. Hey, Shaheen, where are you? What time is it?
Past.
Well, we're really, does that say 37?
Yep.
Forget the story.
But you gotta say it now.
Okay, I'll read it quick. It's a story from Jesus. I'll read it really quick. Jesus is talking about our life. Right before this, he says, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do what I say? What a great question. He has a right to say that, right? You say you believe in me, but you don't do what I say. Kind of weird. But then he tells us stories, talking about our lives. He says this, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, my instructions for your life, and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house or his life on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall. Why? Because it had its foundation on the rock. Jesus is saying, If you want to build your life on the rock, when the storms of life are going to come, but when they come, your life is going to stand. You are in freedom. You have confidence. You have joy. You have fulfillment, and nothing can take that away when you do and follow what I say. He says the opposite is true. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice, does not submit to what God says, is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, like it does for everybody. The streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house. And it fell with a great crash, a terrible crash. I've seen too many lives fall apart and crash and burn because of the old way of freedom is, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'll make up my own rules. That will lead to a crash. And it's not freedom, but it is bondage. You and I have a choice to make. Are we going to, with our own personal lives, are we going to submit to what God says and be a follower of Jesus, or are we going to do our own thing? It's up to us. I say this, true freedom is submitting to what God says for our life. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this time today, and I'm sorry that we went late, and I just pray for lunch right now, pray for all the moms. Lord, we all have a choice to make. As for me and my house, we will serve you. I pray that every person here can say that. As for me and my life, doesn't matter what everybody else is going to do, I am going to serve you. In Jesus' name, amen.